Ready.
Okay, good evening everybody and welcome to the Town Hall meeting of the Town of Ossining for October 15th, 2019. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you everybody for joining us tonight to officially kick off our new comprehensive plan with sustainability elements. We are so excited to get started and learn more tonight from Tiffany Zazula of Pace University's Land Use Law Center. Before I hand the microphone over to Tiffany, I know that a lot of you are here because of your concerns about the proposed development for the Stony Lodge site, also known as River Knoll. That project is currently before the planning board and will only come before the town board for review after the environmental review pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act is complete. So when that process is complete, it would come to us. Tonight we are here for a different purpose. I will give you a brief background of how we got to talk about a comprehensive plan. During my time as supervisor, I've had the opportunity to participate in a variety of learning opportunities relating to planning, community development, and comprehensive plans in our region and beyond, many of which have actually been facilitated by Pace Land Use Law Center. As I started to learn more, it became evident that the town was in a great position to revisit our comprehensive plan originally completed in 2002 with notable revisions along the way, and to consider new best practices that are starting to emerge in other communities similar to Ossining and in Westchester County and beyond. One of the most compelling programs that I participated in was the Plan for Health Task Force through the American Planning Association's Metro Unit in partnership with Pace University. A number of planners and architects, a representative from Open Door Family Medical Center, and Westchester County's Planning Department. Our efforts culminated in the development of a Healthy Communities Toolkit to help municipalities implement policies, land use codes, and programs to foster healthy communities. And healthy is contemplated in the biggest sense of the word that you can imagine. At the same time, we had been looking for ways to be more environmentally conscious and pursue certification by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation as a climate smart community, something that my predecessor and previous boards had also started down the path. In 2017, the town was approached by Pace to consider applying to the Climate Smart Communities grant stream to become a model community for integrating the Healthy Communities Toolkit into our policies and town code. We happily agreed and were blessed to receive over $70,000 in grant funding for this project, along in partnership with Pace University. All of these efforts, in addition to so many other projects that we have been working on, like the Millwood Ossining Go, MoGo, bicycle and pedestrian plan, the introduction of our solar code, our tree bank development, our leaf blower legislation, concern with protection of our watersheds, and other improvements to our environmental footprint were leading us to a new comprehensive plan. As we do each year during the following year's grant cycle, we took a closer look at the state's grant opportunities and found that the Climate Smart Communities Grant Program offered funding for a comprehensive plan with sustainability elements. We applied again and were so excited to find out that we had been awarded $100,000 in grant funding for this project. With both projects, we will not only receive great planning documents to draw from going forward and also be part of the process to develop those documents, but we will also receive certification points under Climate Smart Communities and hopefully reach our goal of earning bronze level certification. In addition to the bragging rights and funding opportunities that go along with that level, in the near future, we hope that we will be able to take advantage of this unique situation, which at the same time is that the Village of Ossining is completing a comprehensive plan update, and creating new opportunities to work together with them for wherever synergies arise. And we think that that is an excellent and important opportunity to take advantage of. Now, with nearly $200,000 in grant funding under our belt and a fixed timetable associated with that funding, we are ready to hit the ground running and plan for a healthier and more sustainable Ossining. We realize the suburbs are changing. Millennials are looking for more walkable, diverse, and city-like neighborhoods, while our empty nesters are looking for affordable ways to age in place. We are also aware of some of the impacts that climate change will have, and are looking for our communities to be more environmentally friendly and resilient to such impacts as sea level rise and increased flooding. Additionally, there are ways that some of our neighbors and Westchester colleagues have started to innovate at the comprehensive plan level. For example, some have utilized form-based codes, which allow municipal governments and communities to have more of a role in defining what they want development to look like specifically, and then developers are required to back into that vision. Others have introduced a more versatile policy framework as their comprehensive plan that can be regularly referenced instead of sitting on a shelf and really act as a more active tool for a community than a traditional comprehensive plan. Tonight is the start of what will be a long process of informing what the future of the town of Ossining will look like, and of course the rest of Ossining is also involved in that. These plans could take at least a year to fully develop. We're happy to be partnering with Pace University's Land Use Law Center on this project to assist with community engagement and help us stay on the cutting edge of comprehensive planning. As a reminder, we need to be out of the library this evening by 9:15. We have some index cards here if you have questions or statements, and if we have time, we'll have people come up to the podium with their questions related to kicking off our comprehensive plan. If we do not have time for questions, we will collect them and work on an FAQ with responses that will get included in our comprehensive planning public outreach process. We anticipate launching a page dedicated to the comprehensive plan on our website as we get a little further into the process. Also, Tiffany has some public engagement boards she will facilitate in the hallway after she's done with her presentation, and the board has had an opportunity to ask questions. Tiffany, thanks so much for joining us. We're excited to learn more.
You're welcome. So I'm forced to go up there.
I take this with you.
Oh, sure. There's no mic. Great. Well, thank you very much. And yes, I apologize that I'm presenting from up here, but I also didn't have a clicker. So we will let me just make sure. Well, first of all, thank you. And I thank the town board and the town of Ossining for having me here tonight, and for all of you for coming out tonight, because it's tough. 7:30, right? We're all wanting to be home at dinner with our families, and having you here this evening, I really appreciate. And part of what I do is public engagement with many different municipalities. So anytime I see people out actively involved, I'm absolutely thrilled. So thank all of you for coming this evening, and hopefully I will get to speak to many of you outside in the hallway when this is all finished. So yes, I am the Deputy Director of the Land Use Law Center at Pace Law School right in White Plains, New York. We are a not-for-profit. We provide essentially technical assistance to municipalities across the Hudson Valley. And one of our things that we have been actively involved in is comprehensive planning with, again, municipalities across the Hudson Valley. And I can't tell you enough, but this is one of my favorite tools in the toolbox of local municipalities and for communities and citizens themselves. So what I wanted to do this evening was sort of to go into a little bit of what is a comprehensive plan, provide sort of that education of what this planning tool is, and then walk you through some of the steps of what comprehensive planning looks like now and some of the best practices and what you might expect from this process as it continues along in this next year. So the comprehensive plan is a written document that is formally adopted by your local legislative body. So at some point in time, your town board will officially adopt this plan, and it contains goals, and it contains objectives and strategies, and implementation measures of how to move and get to the goals that we're trying to accomplish. I like to look at a comprehensive plan as our New Year's resolution as a community. And we're not going to fail at this New Year's resolution, because what we're going to do is put those goals of what we want, and then we're going to put objectives and strategies, and again, implementation measures to get us to our goals. And the goals are going to be ambitious. They're things that we may not fully accomplish, but yet there are ways and objectives, again, that will help us get closer and closer to those goals. So this is one of our most important powers of local governments, is this responsibility to undertake comprehensive planning and to regulate land use to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare. So I love comprehensive planning, but guess what? Communities don't have to have a comprehensive plan. I shouldn't be telling you that now, but yes, it's true. Communities don't have to have a comprehensive plan. And many communities in New York State, especially upstate, I would say, don't have comprehensive plans. But if you do have a comprehensive plan, then all of your land use regulations and your zoning must be in conformance with your comprehensive plan. And that's big. So let me say that again. Your land use regulations and your zoning must be in conformance with your comprehensive plan. And the thing is it makes sense, because again, we're trying to protect the public safety and welfare and health, and this document of the comprehensive plan is going to be based on all of your vision of what that future looks like for Ossining. And the other thing is, for communities that don't have a comprehensive plan, then they're leaving it in the hands of the court to make the determination as to whether or not a zoning change or a land use change is in conformance with what that plan for that community is. And if a court doesn't have a comprehensive plan to look at, right, then the court's making that decision for you. And we don't want that, right? We want the community to make the decisions of how, again, how zoning and land use and your vision, I guess, are going to be moved forward. I wanted to make sure that I hit upon this one more time and let you read this, but again, formal written document. It's society's insurance, again, that the public welfare is served. One thing I want to say about comprehensive plans is that I agree with what the supervisor just said. What we are trying to do is not create a document that sits on a shelf. I have a story of a supervisor, I won't name any names, that I knew very well, was quoted in the newspaper as saying, guess what, we haven't looked at the comprehensive plan, right? It's old, it just sits on a shelf. And I called up that supervisor and I said, you gotta be kidding me, I can't believe you just said that. And he said, well, Tiffany, look, the document's old, it doesn't really meet the vision of our citizens, and it was just simply done behind the scenes without a lot of public participation, and therefore it really doesn't speak to who we are today. And so no one really looks at it. And by the way, it's quite long, so who's going to read the comprehensive plan? People like me. I like to read comprehensive plans, and hopefully all of you after we get through this process, right? All right. So how do you know that it's time for a new plan? And a lot of people who come to our training programs ask that question. And the simple answer is, in New York, legally, again, there's no set time frame of how often you have to update your comprehensive plan. So in Connecticut, I think that the law states that it's every 5 or maybe it's every 10 years that a community must update its plan of conservation and development in Connecticut. In New York, it doesn't state anything. And so what you're looking for and what your board looks for are simply, are you getting a lot of requests for zoning amendments, zoning changes, or land use changes? That could be a hint to that it might be a time to update our comprehensive plan. You might have noticed that there are social and community needs that have changed, or local or national or international shifts. I know communities in New York that have very old comprehensive plans, right? Some of them from 1950s, 1960s, and I'm going to say that's old because a lot has changed since 1950s and the 1960s, right? And that change, those shifts that we have seen in technology, in sustainability, and everything that we know and love needs to be in this comprehensive plan. And that's when you know you might need to update it. And I have other municipalities too that even after this process, and this is awesome, I love the communities that do this, is that they take that year and a half, they adopt a new comprehensive plan, and then the next 6 months, that next year, they look at the document and look for changes that need to be made. It may not be perfect. So how do we keep that document alive and living and maybe not have to update the full thing? We constantly review it on a 6 month, 12-month period of time and make changes accordingly. One of the first things communities do after they've decided to go forward with the comprehensive plan is appoint some type of task force or committee who will be responsible for moving that comprehensive plan forward, right? They're the ones who are sort of our checks and balances of what's currently in that comprehensive plan, the language that's in the comprehensive plan, some of the themes that might arise in the comprehensive plan. So they charge town board, it charges an existing task force or committee, right? And that might be already one that you have in play. You might decide to create a new comprehensive plan committee, okay? So now, new people, whoever you want from the community, we'll talk about that in a second. But one of the requirements, no matter what, is you must have a planning board member that sits on the comprehensive plan committee. That is a requirement. So who can sit on a comprehensive plan committee, and what have we seen as some of the practices? I look at a comprehensive plan committee as being an opportunity for everyone in your community to identify with someone that sits on the comprehensive plan committee, right? So you might have, again, our planning board member, we might have another municipal official, you'd have someone from your business community, maybe someone who's in charge or is president of a homeowners association. Maybe you have someone with an environmental concern, historic preservation concern, I can make this list go on and on, by the way, a PTA member, housing advocate, right? I mean, you can start to think about the different shapes of people who are interested in a variety of topics that would sit on a comprehensive plan committee. But one of the main roles I think a comprehensive plan committee serves is that they're the ones to help develop the community engagement process, okay? So you don't have to have a bunch of technical experts that sit within your comprehensive plan committee. Yes, you can have some, and yes, they should be engaged within the process, those that have technical expertise. But most importantly, and I'm going to get to this a little bit later on, is that they are sort of, I want to call them the movers and shakers of your community. They're the ones who can help get more public support and public input by the fact that they know people, they know how to get the flyers out there, they know how to get the PTA involved or parents involved, the people who might not be able to attend a 7 p.m. meeting. How are we going to get those voices out? It's those people that I love sitting on a comprehensive plan. Some communities have even gone as far as even wanting a high school representative to sit on their comprehensive plan committee. For the youth perspective, again, to get parents involved. I will say the high school rep came every other meeting, but that's okay. But, you know, again, he or she helps give a different perspective about our community. So it's a diverse group of people that have a variety of different backgrounds. And your committee's role can vary in all of the different bullets that you see here today. Okay. So here's the thing. Currently, there is a new wave of comprehensive plan structures that you will see throughout the Hudson Valley. Comprehensive plans traditionally have been created, I'd like to say, in silos. If you've ever opened up a comprehensive plan, which if you, after tonight's meeting, haven't already, please do, what you'll notice is a typical comprehensive plan starts with an existing conditions chapter where it goes through and tells you some of the market information, demographic trends of your community. And then after you've maybe peeled through all of that, you start to get to the chapters of comprehensive plan. One on housing, one on open space and natural resources. Maybe there's one on the economy, or I'm trying to think of another, transportation. Whatever it is, they were always built comprehensive plans as chapters of subject matters and land use. And what we're noticing is that now again, there's new practices that we're seeing. Because any of those land use topics I just mentioned, as you well know, affect one another. If we make a change in our transportation policy, or make any change that we have in maybe a road, it's going to affect, potentially, our economy, the environment, maybe even housing, who knows? But they all interconnect, right? And that type of interwoven nature of these land use topics is the way new comprehensive plans are starting to adjust to, so that we can see how all these topics interrelate. And most importantly, the comprehensive plans are based on sustainability. And there are 3 spheres that we say that make up sustainability: the environment, equity, and of course, the economics, right? The economy. And the other thing is, and this is again based, this is nothing I came up with, by the way, so I don't take credit for this, but the APA, the American Planning Association, is the one who came up with this new standards for sustaining places, this new model of comprehensive planning that many other communities here in the backyard of Ossining have started to use as the template for their new comprehensive plan. And it's working out quite well. And the other thing that comprehensive plans are starting to include also, as the supervisor just said, is that they're noting what New York State as well looks for in terms of its new policies and its new programs, and how we can integrate that type of wording, that type of framing into our comprehensive plan, so we are better to become a bronze community, or we can announce ourselves as a sustainable community, market that for our community if we'd like. And so we're seeing those practices involved in these new comprehensive plans. And then, as the supervisor also said, one of the other big things coming in is public health, right? And how that topic also touches upon and relates to many of the themes of within your comprehensive plan. What else do I want to make sure I say? Let's see. So let me just go through a little bit of the themes. I'm going to read to you because I can't memorize them all, but some of the major themes that we're seeing in comprehensive plans at this point, again, we're not silos of housing or transportation. Instead, you're seeing themes of the livable built environment. You'll see a theme of harmony with nature, resilient economy, responsible regionalism, and healthy communities. Now, this is just a sample from one municipality in your backyard that chose these major themes based on the APA's principles. I will say Terrytown recently went through a comprehensive plan update that we worked on with them, and they chose themes similar. They did a built environment, but they chose another one on mobility. They chose one on resiliency and sustainability, and I think culture, education, and community resources was another theme of theirs. So to give you a sense of how this interwoven nature of a comprehensive plan would look like, the livable built environment includes references to, obviously, the built environment, directing growth and development to specific areas in the community. It talks about the diversity of housing stock, the options of cultural resources and recreational activities to support the new development. It talks about safe space and improvement to mobility. And it talks about sustainable infrastructure to maintain this high quality of life. I mean, that's a lot, I just said. That is development, transportation, sustainability, what else did I name? Mobility, all in this one themed area and how they interrelate. But get this, harmony with nature. This themed area talks about environmental assets. It talks about references to keeping a compact urban form to protect those assets. So now we're talking about moving growth to certain areas in order to protect those environmental resources. This area talks about sustainable development strategies, green practices, embracing energy efficiency, minimizing pollution, and implementing green technology. Again, this is in harmony with nature. The Resilient Economy chapter talks about creating a diverse tax base, supporting high-quality transportation connections to key employment markets, and ensuring successful commercial areas and affordable housing to provide stability in resident families. So again, housing comes up in Resilient Economy, mobility comes up in Resilient Economy. It's not its own chapter, it's in these little areas here. And then finally, healthy community, where this is Newcastle, I will reference, this is Newcastle's comprehensive plan that talks about fresh air, clean water, green spaces, bike trails, walking paths, recreational program, emergency preparedness, and ways to contribute to the physical, mental, and social well-being of residents. All captured in that themed area. And what Newcastle did, similar to Terrytown and others that are working towards this new practice, this new layout, this new template, is they have, I think, Newcastle has 48 goals that are under these themed areas, and then an implementation strategy in the back of the book that people that I know, Sabrina, the Director of Planning, works on that implementation chapter to make sure that things are getting done. We also are starting to see, and I welcome anyone to go visit the Town of Newcastle's or the Village of Terrytown's website, because you will see their comprehensive plan is online. And it's succinct, and it's user-friendly. It is a click the button and actually read the document, because you don't have to go through 400 pages. I think Terrytown's is possibly an 85-page document, and that includes some of the appendices, right? So we want something that is user-friendly and something that obviously is up online that we can get access to, that new developers coming into the community can get access to, so they can understand better your vision. And again, that the document doesn't sit on the shelf. All right, so then we're going to talk about one last thing, and this is my favorite part of this. Most important to this blueprint that you're creating is the fact that this is a moment to have a conversation with the community. It's a time to check in with the community about your future and where you're growing and where you're conserving and what your next steps are for the next 5, 10 years. Because if you've done this comprehensive plan right, then the developers who come in and the property owners who come in should be the implementers of this vision. Let me say that again. We want the developers that come in, right? And the property owners who are doing, or businesses here, whatever it is, that growth that's happening, we want them to implement, the community itself to implement your comprehensive plan, because it's your vision, right? So, in order to do that, you have to have aggressive public engagement. One of the things you'll see here on the corner is Newcastle's Master Planning Public Engagement Report. For instance, I will just say Newcastle started their public engagement effort prior to embarking upon the update of their comprehensive plan, just to understand a little bit about what was going right in the community, what were some of the challenges in the community, and based on that, in this report, they realized a comprehensive plan update was in order. And within this is actually an appendix online, I will call it an appendix, it's online, that people can reference, and I know that they go back to understand the themes that arose from it. And that public engagement report became those themes, those goals that were put forth in the comprehensive plan. Part of what we're going to be going through for the next year is that every comment of someone from the public says should resonate with one of the goals in the comprehensive plan, more or less, right? So And there's moments along the way to do that checks, to do a check and balance. So we ask what's good now, what's not working, what are strategies. You might see the development in this public engagement process to have, again, we talked about, a steering committee for the comp plan. Maybe there's working groups that are more of the technical experts that assist in the development of the plan. You're going to see public workshops, stakeholder and interest group meetings, possibly town advisory board discussions, online surveys, meetings with staff, of course. And we have to get creative in our public engagement. So there's going to be things that are simply education sessions, or again, like we talked about, surveys, or social media, or neighborhood walks. I'm not saying all of this is getting done, but this is up to all of you. There's going to be newspaper articles. Different communities do different things to get creative and to get people out there. And we might even see engagement that's not traditional, meaning it won't take place at 7 p.m. here at the Village Library, which is a great spot. But you might end up seeing stuff about the comprehensive plan at the shopping center, or at a local bar, or at the senior centers, or business locations. In Mount Pleasant, in the past summer in Mount Pleasant, we actually ran a community engagement session at the town pool. At the height of summer, we had people participating because that's where they are. Part of public engagement is about going out to where the people already are and not having to have them come to a 7 p.m. meeting. So there are creative ways of doing that. We have met with, again, high school students during classes to get their perspective and input for the comprehensive plan. We have hosted events at parks in the middle of the week where, you know, mom and dads that were home with their kids could participate, and it was announced beforehand. So just creative locations, but we have to get mobile and we have to get that word out there of the importance, again, of this document. The more public input we have, the better that this document becomes for you in the future. And these are just little things that you'll see. Even in Pleasant Valley, they hosted a community picnic. They didn't even talk about comprehensive planning, because besides me and you and everyone watching this right now, who else knows about what a comprehensive plan is? Let me be honest, I go to cocktail parties, I love telling people this, and when people ask me what I do, and I start talking about land use, and I work on comprehensive planning, but most people walk away from me. It's a snooze fest. So we have to come up with something about meeting our neighbors and building our town centers, or whatever it is, to get people to come out to be a part of this. And then finally, one of the most interesting engagement efforts recently, which I can't say is, it is what it is. It's been wonderful though, I think, is poster boards around town. And it's interactive, and people are standing in line, getting their coffee at the local coffee shop, and they are putting their comments down. And I will tell you, I would say probably 95% of these comments were not someone putting chicken scratch down of, right, like, whatever, let's meet at Sally's house or whatever. These were all comments that were put within the public engagement report for Tarrytown and put within those goals. You'll see here a very simple exercise of people just saying and reacting to the types of development they want to see. So they may not be the people who traditionally participate in the conversations we're having, but it just gives us a sense of what the general public might be considering and thinking about, okay? And then we have an individual from the steering committee in Tarrytown here that was at a local jazz fest on the waterfront there, again, introducing the idea of comprehensive planning to people. So that is what I wanted to share. And then I think what I want to do is open it up to the town board to have some discussion about this and thoughts about this. But this is Comp Planning 101 right now. And that's it. So bring my mic back over. Awesome.
Thanks so much, Tiffany. That's great. So we have gotten some guidance now, and I'd just like the town board to have an opportunity to talk a little bit about possibly what types of groups, based on some of that input that we just received from Tiffany, we might want to start thinking about to make sure we get representation for our steering committee or our task force. And the next piece of that would be for us to go out for a request for proposals, also to have a planning firm that's going to be working alongside PACE to lead us in some of the planning efforts. And as mentioned by Tiffany, there was a requirement that there a planning board member be part of the steering committee, so that's one requirement, and then the rest I think are just suggestions. I know that we have a number of different issues that are before us right now as a community that I think we want to make sure that we think about the different groups that are here in town. And I know that one question that might be of interest is, so again, we know that the village is also working, the Village of Ossining is working on their comprehensive plan, and what is the town of Ossining's comprehensive plan going to encompass? Whatever zoning and planning we're responsible for, which is really the unincorporated Ossining, is going to be part of that, but also anything that's part of the our jurisdiction in terms of guiding documents and policy. So we also have a number of town parks that are overseen by the town, and that would also be our towns and our roads, or also part of our infrastructure, would also be part of our comprehensive plan. So just so it's clear how it all ties together. And again, we talked a little bit about working alongside the village. We have had some just preliminary discussions to start thinking, how would we do that? Both boards would have to sort of come together and decide if that was something that we wanted to do in any formal way. But I think that informally, we are certainly going to invite the village to participate in our process, and we've been invited to participate in their process. And we've sent representatives to at least one of the meetings I think that they've had so far. So that's something that we will continue to do to be as synergistic as we can, given the fact that we're two separate governments. So anyway, I just want to open it up to the board to see if you have any thoughts or suggestions based on some of Tiffany's comments, and then we'll take some input from the public.
Just to add to what you said real quick, I didn't put it up here because it's typically where I should have, but one of Newcastle's chapters is actually called Responsible Regionalism. So they did look at the surrounding municipalities, and we do encourage, when we talk about comprehensive planning and best practices, is that you're looking at regionally at all your neighboring municipalities, some of their planning documents and efforts, right? So that all of that can come together more succinctly. So yes, that I didn't have it up there, but that is a chapter.
So, I mean, I can, certainly make some suggestions, but I'd rather that the town board, that you guys have the opportunity. So I'm going to just pass the microphone. Start.
Well, I have some questions. So how many people are typically on the steering committee? And in our case, since we have the zoning, this is guiding our zoning, and the only zoning we're in charge of is in the town outside area, would it be weighing heavier toward people in the town outside on the committee, or would there be a separate section where they would talk about the zoning, or are we looking at that comprehensively? How many people were we looking at from each area?
So most of the variety of municipalities, everyone's different, so there's no standard on this. I've had communities that are larger that have had numerous people participate, and that can be a struggle, but they're also cities, right? They're much larger entities. But typically for a town, we're looking between 5, no more than 10 people, and I think that's reasonable. But there are other ways if that the public continues to be interested, or individuals are very interested in participating actively, right? Working groups or sub-meetings that happen on, again, more technical aspects of the comprehensive plan as you dive deeper into it. Again, 5 to 10 people are who would sit on the steering committee, with one of those being a planning board member. And then in terms of the perspectives, you have to look at the comprehensive plan comprehensively. So if there are certain areas of your town that are going to get more focused, right, that's fine. And that could happen along the way. And so therefore, in that, there might be separate meetings, like I just expressed, that you're bringing in stakeholders from that specific area to make some of those considerations. But a comprehensive plan is holistic and doesn't just look at one area or update just one area. You're looking at the whole thing and how your whole community affects one another.
Okay. Are planning firms always used?
No. The planning forums are not always used, but if you have a strong planner in-house, then they can lead that process. But I think professional planning firms they're going to offer some of those best practices that we just talked about. They're looking, again, at what's happening here in the region. They've potentially worked on other neighboring municipalities' plans and understand those. They're going to have some of those strategies and land use techniques that we might not always be thinking about, right? That we bring people to conferences across the country to talk about new innovations in land use, and so a professional planning staff can help facilitate and make you think and challenge you as a community as to ways to move forward.
All right, and what's the fixed timetable?
In terms of a comprehensive plan update, again, varies. I think you are definitely looking between 12 to 18 months of getting this done. And that's with formal board approval and the whole kit and caboodle, like everything from soup to nuts. So, and that's, I will say, that's still aggressive, right? For all the community engagement we just talked about and shaping that document up. It's still an aggressive timeline, but if you move forward and this is a regular monthly activity and your whole community is on board, I mean, it can happen. So, yeah. I mean, Terrytowns, I think, took 18 months recently.
Yeah, I have one question. Comprehensive plan, I couldn't talk to anybody about it because I don't understand what we just said. Now, what is the comprehensive plan about? What is it? I don't know. What are we trying to do here?
So it's a policy document, right? It's setting forth your policies here in the town. So from setting out goals of, like, let me see if I can find a goal.
Because my thing is, if I'm talking to somebody, what am I going to say to somebody? I have no idea what the town, we already have plans in the town, that's why we're sitting up here now, I think. But I just don't understand where we're headed with this comprehensive plan.
You're taking, so let's say you do have different planning documents here in Ossining for a variety of neighborhoods or a variety of issues. This is your moment to sort of bring all of that to one document, your guiding document for those land use changes and zoning changes. So as you potentially look at updating zoning or any land use changes, you want an up-to-date comprehensive plan to support that. So that document is going to speak to things, again, like we talked about, mobility, and if you want shared parking, right? Maybe that's going to be a concept you put in your comprehensive plan, and then it's going to move you to ways of how to get to that goal of shared parking, or you want, I don't know, to preserve certain parks, right, that aren't preserved currently. These are all goals your community might set forth, and then you need to have all the backing of how you're going to get there. That's what this document does. Again, the best way to look at it is your New Year's resolution that you write down in 80 pages or less.
Okay, thank you.
I I was wondering how municipalities go about choosing what themes they're going to follow.
That's a good question. So traditionally, what we have seen with the themes is that we have usually gone out for 1 or 2 or 3 visioning sessions, let's call them, large visioning sessions with the community. And from those visioning sessions, we will talk about topics, housing. You know, there'll be a station on housing, a station on the economy or commercial development. Topics that people know and love, right? And they're going to talk about what they want to see in those areas, what's good, what's bad, and maybe strategies of getting to where you want to go. And what we see once those visioning sessions are over are larger issues and larger ideas that come forth. So for instance, I just want to, like for Terrytown, I think that when we were in every single station, from housing to commercial development, transportation was spoken about, right? And parking, and they wanted to talk more about, you know, connections within the community. That we began to see, because it came across all levels, a theme of mobility that was important to the community. And part of what that public engagement plan does, and part of what my job will be for all of you, is to bring those themes to light so they don't get lost, right? Because so easily we could have maybe only seen 2 people talk about parking or, I don't know, transportation under the housing conversation we were having. But then across the board, all of a sudden, it became a much bigger issue, where you bring it to all, you know, when you start to talk about mobility, all the variety of levels of things regarding transportation and sidewalks that bring it to light. Same thing for Newcastle. They started to walk down the path of seeing so many people and young people talk about commercial development within their downtown. Their livable built environment chapter to them became very important, and that did encompass a lot for them. But that's how we can get to some of the themes, and part of the second part of that exercise, working hand in hand with the planning firm, is to say to the community the next time you come out, here's what these themes we think are, here's what we think some of these goals might look like, tell us if we're right. You said X, this is how it translates into planning words, is that correct? So again, it's a work in progress, yeah.
Thanks. And to the question of who should be on the board, the Recreation Advisory Board is actually going through a visioning process for all of the parks, and the Recreation Advisory Board is Village of Ossining and Town of Ossining. So we have members from both communities. And we are currently going through a park visioning, so it might be helpful to have someone from Rec Advisory Board in this process.
Thank you. My first question is, can you tell me what the process is when the committee meets? Suppose there's 10 people on the committee, 3 disagree. Is it a simple majority that sort of rules in that situation, or?
That's a tough question. I don't know if with a comprehensive plan, what's somewhat nice is because it's a policy document, you're able to base things more on everyone's interests rather than a yes or no, right? Rather than, you're not, in a comprehensive plan, you're not saying we're using a floating zone to get to commercial development or to create a fuller affordable housing, housing, or we're using a 4-base code. We're not getting to that level in a comprehensive plan, but the issue or the interest might be a diversity of housing stock. How we get there, which is where typically we have issues, isn't in the comprehensive plan. We know we have these interests, and so describing that, and then next step will be, obviously the conversation about what's the right technique to get there, depending on where you're looking in your community. But part of what we're going to do, and I think part of what this is an education process for everybody. I mean, I think we're, when the planner sits down for the first time and talks about some of your existing conditions or market trends, that starts to educate people and sometimes shift perspectives, or some of the conversations we might have shift that. So it isn't a majority rule, I would say. It's a conversation that we facilitate, and we hope we get to where we need to get. But yes, I probably didn't answer that. But
my next question is, in Ossining, I think one of the things that sets us apart from a lot of the communities around here is our diversity. have you seen an example of a place that did a good job of ensuring diversity, both racial, age, gender diversity on the committee?
So I think, on the committee, on the steering committee itself?
Correct.
I think that the Village of Terrytown did a nice job of who was sitting on their comprehensive plan committee. They had a committee, and I think they also we had like working groups that involved more people. But the committee itself had a variety of people from a variety of backgrounds. The only perspective, I mean, they did have a young family person, but they didn't have like the youth participate. I think like a New Rochelle and a Mount Vernon, they were able to go the level of having the high school type perspective. And then recently, the Village of Ossining, I think, has a great steering committee in play, a diverse group, again, a variety of backgrounds, and they also each have a unique perspective, where they're connected in a different way to different groups in the community, and that's really important, right? Again, is who do they have connections with? Is it the environmental group? Is it a certain, religious group? Whatever it is, but. So the Village of Ossining and then the Village of Terrytown have done a nice job of that.
Thank you.
Tiffany, well, I'll just leave that to the next question, which is the processes for coming up with those steering committees for both Terrytown and Ossining, where you think you did a good job at having a diverse representation. Can you even talk, were they similar, were they different? How did they come up with them?
Because they were different. So Terrytown, by the way, this is like, so I teach class. This is like worse than class. So I feel like I'm really on the hot spot here. Okay, so, Terrytown, I remember them simply, it was a nomination process that they had certain people in mind, the village administrator and their mayor. They were working hand in hand very closely with their chair of their planning board, who was championing this process from the very beginning. He thought that it was very important, so he was a part of that dialogue. So I would say it was almost like an executive committee who decided who was on it and invited representatives. But then recently in Ossining, they put out a blast. And asked people to sort of send in like a resume or fill out a form of who's interested, and they were able to sift through some of that. And then they also, based on other meetings they'd had, they knew who some of the engaged people were. One thing that Terrytown did, and others, like even Newcastle did, was at the beginning of the process, people may not know that they are excited to be a part of this, and they may not end up on the formal committee, but again, they check this box that we will put out that says, I want to participate, like I want to be informed and be a part of this. And we had people check off they want to be part of the committee, and some of them came, and they sat and they assisted, and they didn't come to all, but they became a part of that process. So it's open, and then those committee meetings are traditionally open for people to participate and be a part of. So, yeah.
Great. So for the next 10 minutes, it would be great if we could hear a little bit from the public. If you have questions about the comprehensive plan process, I'd love to be able to keep the focus to this topic. I know, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, that many of you have come here because of your concern about one particular development, and I understand that that's important to you. If you could, again, focus your comments and or questions and try to leave time for other people to speak too. And then at around a little after 8:30, I think Tiffany's going to move outside to continue to facilitate public engagement, and we're going to continue with some announcements, and then we're going to go into executive session for advice of counsel on personnel issues that have nothing to do with this process. So, yes.
I want to say one thing about the questions outside,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just to put a little pitch out. Number one, certainly sign your name in if you haven't already, because I'd like to, and write your email nice and clear so that I can actually, it doesn't get bounced back. and you will be informed of next steps and things like that when it moves forward. Number two is there's one of the flip charts out there actually asks, who do you think should be a part of this process? And I don't mean names of people, and sorry if that's confusing, but it's really like, who are the groups here? Do you have an active, because I don't know, so do you have an active YMCA? Do you have an active seniors center? Do you have an active, whatever it is, PTA? Put that out there, just so we can get a sense of the variety of organizations and again, people that are out there through the chamber, things like that. So please just put it on a post-it note and stick it up there. So thank you. Thank you. All right.
And if you could just say your name and maybe where you live, that would be
Hello,
great.
Chris O'Connor, I live on 199 Cedar Lane in Ossining. That was very good, thank you for the presentation. I think one of the things that just jumped out at me and some of the other members were dancing and talking around it is that Ossining's use case, at least the town, has almost another circle in your diagram because the village, Briarcliff, Crotonville, and I think part of the problem that we've faced in the last 10 to 15 years maybe, and I've been in my house for 17 years, so that makes me 10 when I bought my house because if you do the math, that's how a young man is in his house this long. But it's that idea that we're disconnected from certain neighborhoods. Newcastle's probably has a great plan. It killed me personally because I live about less than a quarter mile from the Newcastle border, and there's a big project there. So our region, in some way, especially the town, and we've talked, there's so much of this historic ugliness. So as you step in this with fresh eyes, and as you guys pick a vendor for RFP, I would want to make sure they have some experience dealing with this historic baggage that we claim as a town, a village, Briarcliff, Crotonville, Croton. And there's regions of watershed and important wildlife that needs to be protected, not just by Ossining, because our board sits on other boards and our interests can be controlled, but that need a bit more of a holistic approach. So it might be a different use case than those cut and dry ones of, okay, we have a nice clean town, we control everything. This is duplicated in probably 3 or 4 different meetings, which drive me nuts. It's a separate conversation. But just please keep that in mind. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. That's a great comment. Great comment. And noted it. And I think the RFP process should reflect that. And one of the things is that, am I supposed to be responding to this? But sorry, but is that yes. There is a lot of things like you're making impacts to other municipalities impact you. Maybe, who knows, but maybe part of this technical assignment is to gather those regional documents, those leaders to understand better where we overlap and how our planning can be more holistic and regional, because I agree, our wildlife and our watersheds don't stop at the municipal boundaries, and so how do we plan together in that? And this is a moment that can open everybody up to that. So yeah, great.
Dave Whittinger, 207 Cedar Lane. I was wondering if you could speak more to the interaction with the village of Ossining and with Briarcliff, because as you may know, some of the big themes that we're going to be dealing with, our taxes are the highest in Westchester in comparison. Our schools are overcrowded. There's a need for housing, but we're intertwined. I mean, there's no getting around it. Our economies are intertwined. Our housing is intertwined. To a large degree, our government services are intertwined. Yet we're not doing a planning process that is coordinated. The schools are in the middle of that and have repeatedly said that they're at the mercy of whatever housing decisions are made by the municipalities. So this does seem like an opportune time, since both municipalities are going through a comprehensive plan at the same time. We're dealing with the exact same financial, economic, and housing struggles. there doesn't seem to be enough coordination described. So I'd like you to speak more to that.
Well, I can't speak too much to it, except for the fact that both of the municipalities right now, in terms of the Village of Austining and the town, have just started to kick this process off. I don't think the village has hired a planning firm or has released an RFP to date. They have unique concerns just like you will, and everyone has to respect that, including, and then same thing with Briarcliff and everyone else. So I think it's still early. I think that regardless, I think both planning firms are going to see the nature of what this is, and I think that from what I've seen already, because I have been over to the Village of Austining and assisting them with just the development of a public engagement plan, they are, Victoria was there, right? So the town was there. I think there's people from the village here today that are just listening in now. I think that we can find ways, and maybe it'll just end up being my job, to continually say that to everybody. And maybe it's someone sitting, and I'm not promising any of this, but is someone sitting on the comprehensive plan committee from Village and Briarcliff here, vice versa? Or when strategically does this get formally introduced, all people? But I don't know yet. There's no planning firms, there's no nothing, except for the fact that both, you're right, this is an opportunity. That's what we can say right now. So
Okay, so that's understandable, it's early. But I guess I would say that we're the same economy, right? And that's what everybody is struggling with right now is economic development, as well as the high taxation and the burden of the schools. It's the exact same problem across the board. So if nothing else, it would seem that there's a collection of studies that need to be done in order to get the data that is going to input to this process and hopefully if it's the right set of studies and the right set of data, it leads to the right set of conclusions with reasonable people in the room. We shouldn't be doing that separately. We shouldn't be doing that with competing data studies. We should be doing that with different visions. There's a lack here that could really be detrimental, and there's an opportunity here that could be missed.
Yeah, I'd like to look at it as an opportunity that won't be missed. So.
Right. Last thing I'd say, we had a lot of interaction with the Newcastle process because we sit on the border as next door neighbor. There were a lot of issues with that process from the public's perspective. And I'll just give you a couple so that we can ward against them perhaps as we go through this. One, the rush to try to accomplish that in a set period of time caused a detriment to the public engagement. And that manifested itself in a couple of different ways. Meetings were scheduled over the course of summer when nobody was around. There were other times when the meetings were just rushed in order to continue through with the schedule. At the end, in order to rapidly finish the document, there were groups of people that were in the room that were helping to craft the text, and that was wholesale thrown away at the end in order to accomplish certain folks in government's objectives. That was not lost on the public. The public recognized that they were disconnected from the process at the end of it. So I'd say that, there might be some that looked at that and said, okay, we got our document done in 18 months. And there are others that looked at that and said, you got a document done for you in 18 months. It doesn't reflect us.
Okay, well, fair enough. That's true. What part of this process involves, which I agree, is timing, right? And how often you run public engagement sessions, when you run them. And as much as sometimes communities want to kick off right away, the timing might not be right because like you're saying, it could be summertime. And so we're not going to get the same type of feedback as we would get in the fall. Or sometimes the fall is not the right moment because everyone's getting back to school. So we have to be flexible and provide various moments throughout the year, absolutely. And I agree. timeframes can be a good thing and they can be a bad thing, right? Because we want to be able to move forward, and you don't want to get lost for too long in this process, because we all have seen comprehensive planning processes that have taken 5 years. By the time you get there, everyone's forgotten what the heck happened. And so keeping that momentum, it can be a good thing, but if it's rushed at the end, agreed, that might not be then the document that speaks for everybody. Absolutely.
One last one.
Absolutely.
Have you had, because it certainly seems to be the case in Austening's history, have you had to deal with trying to manage developers that try to overtly influence the comprehensive plan in order to set the stage for development projects that they would like to embark upon?
So developers, I will say, should partake in the process. Not just one, but many. And they should come to the public sessions and participate in public sessions, because sometimes, I have no idea, by the way, what's going on in Austining, but in other communities, sometimes the developer's perspective can be important because they understand some of the market trends, right? And then other times I get what you're saying, right? There's a project in mind that's trying to be made to happen. But having that voice in the room is just like any other voice in the room of our community. And so you will see, probably, it happened in Tarrytown too. Developers came and just listened. I don't know if they actively participated, but they were listening to what the community had to say, because here was a forum for that to happen. So it is something that is balanced, and it's facilitated, and no one voice in this public process will ever be more important than another. That's what the job of all of, as facilitators, we are trying to do. But it's a perspective that, just like an environmental group or anyone else, that we do like to hear from. So, okay.
Thank you. Looking forward to working with you.
My pleasure.
I'm tired tonight. I'm Joe Campanella. I live on Cedar Lane, and I fully support the other two gentlemen, the neighbors of mine. What I'd like to know is that, honestly, you mentioned, first of all, I enjoyed your presentation. It was very good. Excellent. And it's not the first time I think I participated in one of these without Prezioso. It was just 2000. We processes there. Austin has a comprehensive plan. My understanding is from 2002, you said? What was wrong with that? Just curious. I mean, was it a live document, or was it just sitting on the shelf since 2002? Because what I'm thinking about is, it seems to me that every time we speak about a comprehensive plan, especially if you go to another municipality, it's been sitting on the shelf. Okay, after you do all of this, what's the difference? What made you all of a sudden to say, you know what, we need a new one?
Yeah, there's lots of different perspectives, and as mentioned at the beginning, there are different trends now in the way the comprehensive plans can be effective. A few years ago, we actually heard from somebody we had enlisted to talk to us a little bit about North State Road and how we could re-envision North State Road. And part of that was to look at something that I referenced earlier, which was form-based codes, where you actually basically bring in a developer, and Tiffany, you can correct me if I'm wrong, a master developer to help you design. The community kind of says, okay, we think this area could be developed like this, and we think this area shouldn't be developed, and we think the roads our business districts should look like this. And you kind of lay out the design in advance, and then developers have to come in and basically back into you, the community, your design that you've all agreed to. That's a new way to look at community development. And that's something that we haven't had an opportunity to do because our comprehensive plan is more chapter-oriented, the way that Tiffany described at the beginning. The other thing that we think is that as we're changing and we're looking at how climate change is impacting us as a waterfront community, that there are opportunities for us to think about how we can be proactive to address those issues. And while I will not say that this has been a dead document,
there are a lot of chapters that really haven't been looked at in a long time. So while we have had updates to the comp plan as recently as 2015, there were a number of different environmental additions that were added to the comprehensive plan, and even before that, I think 2009, there were some changes that were made. It's still another chance for us to work on it. As we talked about before, if you kind of look more holistically at how you can start thinking about public health and environmental issues as part of the bigger picture and take those into account, I think that it's a good opportunity. And we had the state give us a nice blessing with $100,000. So, you know, that's also a nice opportunity, and it works well with the other partnership that we're working on with PACE.
Maybe the next question is, has anything with the last plan worked?
I don't know, you tell me, you live here.
I don't know. I
Well,
don't even know
you
what it
live here.
says.
Well, you live here. You live
I've
here.
lived here a long time. I don't even know how to get a copy. But I
Well,
would love to review an old copy, just see it.
So it is not easily available on our website. We're trying to get to a point where it is more easily available so people can access it, because one of the first pieces of this would be for our task force and our community to be able to review the comprehensive plan that exists with all of the updates. And we're working with our current planner from, what's the new name? Yeah, but I was going to say FP Clark, but they just got bought out, so they have a new name. But FP Clark, we're working on with our planner to get a copy of that's available for everybody on the website.
And one of the things that the planning firm who's hired does is part of that initial process for them will be reviewing, obviously, your comprehensive plan. And, even responding to the RFP will force everyone to be looking at your comprehensive plan to showcase where those modifications and updates can be made. And some areas, you're right, might not be much change needed, while other sections or areas, just because of how long, the length of time of just newer things that need to be included.
I mean, there would have been, I think there would have been, it's a valuable document to have to say, this is what it looked like, this is what it was, and this is what we're going to do about it, because this didn't work.
Yeah.
Okay? And what gets me nervous a little bit about it is like the emphasis on the zonings and the emphasis on the developers. Okay? And I think that the community has been burnt over a number of years because of what's been happening. Okay? So the participation of people like me, or people like that were here before speaking before me, that might be something worthwhile to do. Okay? Because at the end of the day, when I saw the presentation, it was excellent, because it said you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do that. But the way to get to do this and that is from the community.
Exactly. And I think that's
Thank you very much, really. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carrie DiMichelli. I live at 60 Morningside Drive in the town. So I just want to point out that the town of Ossining really needs to work in conjunction with the village as well as Briarcliff, because our schools are together. There's a lot of Briarcliff residents and all of the village. We all have the same schools. Tarrytown, whatever works for Tarrytown, they have their own schools. They all have the same focus. North Castle, same thing, all the same focus, Chappaqua schools. So whatever the village decides to do impacts us. Town of Briarcliff has developments that can impact us as well in our schools. Our schools are already overpopulated, completely underfunded. The other thing we need to be sensitive to is our community center. Our community center lies in the village. If you want all of these developments to happen in the town, there's no room in our community center. Our kids have nowhere to go in the winter. So I think that is an area that's really lacking in our entire plan, just in general, that the town is really reliant on the village for that municipality there. And then I also just wanted to say that, 12 months, when you're talking about the type of community engagement that you're talking about, that's really not a long time. You're saying 2 to 3 visionary meetings to begin with, and strategies, objectives, going out into the community, a community this size, why rush it? Why 12 months? Why are we looking at 12 months? I mean, I know that that's just, you're sort of feeding off of what is asked of you, but I just think, you know, people are engaged, people are informed, people are concerned. Our taxes are extremely high for what we're getting. I pay a lot of taxes, and my kids have nowhere to play. You know, their lacrosse team has no indoor practice in the winter because there's no facility for them to use for the amount of taxes that I pay. So just those kinds of things, we are very intertwined with our communities when it comes to our schools and when it comes to our recreation facilities. So I think that's very unique to Ossining. That isn't unique to other areas that you suggested before. So I just wanted to say thank you for your presentation. I found it very informative, but I think we all need to keep into mind that town of Ossining is a very unique case.
Absolutely. Each municipality is, I couldn't agree with you more. And the other thing I want to make sure that I stress right now is when I say 2 to 3 visioning sessions, you're right. It could be 6, 8. I have no idea until we step into this process. And it could be 200 people show up to meeting number 1 and meeting number 2 has 20 or whatever. But you're right. The public engagement plan is all based at the momentum of this community. And we will make sure, right, and when I say also talked about the time frame, yes, you've seen municipalities do it in 12, you've seen it in 18, you've seen it in 24 months. So no set timeline has been set. I was just sort of throwing numbers out from other communities, but I think that everyone here is probably, this is a flexible process because of the fact that if you do want that community participation and buy-in and public participation, then you may not have such strict deadlines and we might have to just keep going, right? We might need another visioning session, or we might need to do a survey, or we adjust accordingly, and we feed off of what the public is asking for. So that's awesome.
And I appreciate that, and I do hope when it comes to the process in developing the committee, I really urge the town board to look to the community for their input on who they want to represent them in the process, which means representatives from the schools, which means representatives from the rec board. Get a diverse group of people. Don't just appoint who aligns with your vision. So, thank you.
I did just want to make a mention that in New York State, school districts overlap municipal boundaries throughout the state. That's how, one of the ways that the state designed school districts at the very beginning when they were figuring all this out, and part of the reason was so that no one municipality or municipal government would then be responsible for the schools. In cities, it's different. So, you know, Peekskill schools are all encompassed in the city of Peekskill. Same thing with White Plains, et cetera. For example, just for everybody's information, if you don't already know, the Ossining schools take people who live in the town of Yorktown, town of Newcastle, which also people go to the Chapel Hill schools from the town of Newcastle, and the town of Ossining, which, as mentioned, encompasses most of the village of Briarcliff, all of the village of Ossining, and all the unincorporated town of Ossining.
Hi. Hello. Hi, I'm Bernadette DeAngelis. I live in the town. Sometimes we say the town outside, but it's the town. At the risk of talking about the elephant in the room, I have a question about timing. What if something's going on that's involved a lot of people in the town currently, and no matter which way that goes, how does that fit in to a new plan? Which comes first? You know, what should we be thinking about? Does one impact the other? Or do we want to have something come of this elephant and then, you know, a year later say, oh, we have to change the comprehensive plan? How does a town work through that?
So, for instance, Newcastle, at the time that they looked at the comprehensive plan, was dealing with Reader's Digest at the same time. Now, when I got involved, I can't speak to where they exactly were in the Reader's Digest property moment, but it involved a lot of community opposition, maybe support here and there, but it was a big moment and a big change for the town that was occurring. The property and what would become of it, the people who came out to Vision during that time talked about it, right? If this goes forward, then here's what we want to make sure, right? Like, so at that point when I got involved, the Reader's Digest property had some, I guess like at that point I think it had some of the zoning changes in place, or maybe it didn't, but we had to make sure that the conversation of Reader's Digest was brought and then linked in with the rest of the community, because everyone's concern, more or less, was the impact on downtown Chappaqua and what it would have on downtown Chappaqua. And so we were able to link the major commercial centers and talk about it in the plan as ways in which these three major centers, Millwood, Chappaqua, and Reader's Digest, needed to be linked together. And what were the different markets for each, and what were the different, right, what would each serve? And so an identity could become for each of the areas that were important to the residents of Newcastle. And so if you go into their document, Reader's Digest is, I don't think it's, quote, spoken like a Reader's Digest. Instead it said, right, this area that has looked for future development and needs to be considered, and these are the, so it was linked into the comprehensive plan. It wasn't one before the other, the two happened sort of at the same time. And then they're obviously have moved forward with building
So
and
that,
everything.
what I think you're saying is that can happen, not one before the other.
It doesn't, again, I don't know what's happening here, but
It's a big
it would be,
elephant.
they can happen together if that's where you are in the process. I don't know where you are in the process with this elephant, but they can all be linked together. Again, if that elephant is something that needs to be discussed in the comprehensive plan, then it's talked in the spoken about in the comprehensive plan. But I say that not knowing where you are in your process for it. So it can happen though. If Reader's Digest, I think, is a great example of what occurred. And so if that makes you feel better or worse, I don't know, but it was spoken about, and the public came out to make sure that it was, you know.
Yeah, well, again, I would hope that town and all of us would be thinking about that, how if there's a mesh that can be done, instead of revising a plan, say, soon after. And also for community engagement, I'd be glad to host a neighborhood coffee for gathering.
Put your name on that poster.
Put my name up there. All right. Okay, but things like that perhaps, instead of, standing outside a supermarket or something, which is not my thing, but come to my house, folks. I'd be glad to do that.
Good evening, Marissa Caruso, 2 Redway Road in the town of Ossining. My question for you is, what are best practices for updating or revising a comprehensive plan? The town of Ossining undertook a comprehensive plan update in 2015. And so I'd just like a better understanding of what that process is, and if it's good practice or even legal for a municipality to tweak or revise a comp plan for a proposed zoning change by a developer for a single process. I think you had explained in your presentation that it should be a holistic view, so we're not looking at one parcel and one zone, we would be looking at that particular zone across the entire area, correct? Just trying to understand.
Yeah, so a comprehensive plan, again, you're looking at like themes, major areas of discussion. So even though we're saying zoning, or here you're referencing a zoning change that might be under some type of consideration, that's not referenced in the comprehensive plan like that. It doesn't say.
But it is in
property.
2015. It identifies a specific property. Okay. And so does that, my question is that then a valid update to the comprehensive plan?
Sorry, I think it's hard for Tiffany to comment on this without more context, and in this environment, it's essentially a hypothetical scenario because she doesn't have any more information.
I can give her the information. In 2015, there was an update made to our comprehensive plan specific to one parcel for a zoning change.
But Marissa, I mean, you're asking a question of something that you
I'm just
threatened to
asking
take
if it's
legal
valid.
action against the town, and I just think that you're actually putting Tiffany into a difficult situation because.
Again, that's misinformation. There's no legal action.
I said
against the
threatened.
town.
I didn't say that there was legal action. I said threatened.
I'm
So-
simply trying to understand the process for updating or revising a comprehensive plan.
Great.
So if you want to talk to that, that would be great.
Okay,
That
I mean,
was-
again,
that
I
was the
really think
whole-
that you're asking her, you're putting her into a difficult situation to answer a very specific question that you're asking without any context.
It's not specific.
It was very specific.
If we adopt a new comprehensive plan, and 5 years from now, the town sees a new need, what is the process for updating that comprehensive plan? That's what I'd like to understand. What does that entail?
So a
Does
new
that
need-
involve an entire new adoption of a comprehensive plan? Is it up to the board? Is there a committee formulated?
Every community is unique with their comprehensive plan updates. So again, because New York has no requirements of when comprehensive plans should be updated, it is a unique process for each municipality. So some might update chapters of a comprehensive plan or include new chapters of comprehensive plans. And others might take in a 5-year time period say, we have to update this whole thing because some of these policies aren't resonating with our community. I think what it comes back to is really what's your community saying and when is that captured in your comprehensive plan?
So it's what a community's saying, not what a single property owner or a developer's saying.
Well, I will say again, every situation is unique with a municipality, and what speaks to moments of change is unique. And so, again,
But
I
again,
don't
it's
know what's
supposed to come from the
happening.
community. It's supposed to be the vision of the community. Is that?
That's my comments
You
right
know,
there.
I think she's trying to speak in general,
I am, very general.
generalistics and based upon her experience. And, you know, I think she's tried to answer your questions, but just in the context of what's being asked, it's really difficult and putting her in a difficult situation.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Tim Mooney. I'm in Briarcliff Manor, so 107 Hungerford Road North, as opposed to Hungerford Road. And I'm just going to say, I came from New Jersey, so I'm very confused by, Westchester in particular, because we had a birthday party for my daughter when she was very young on Macy Road, and then a week later, friends that she had invited who were from the village went to play at that park and were told they had to leave because they were not Briarcliff residents. So I think my point is I would like to see a rationalization of services between the towns and the villages, and again, I'm still, so I'm in Briarcliff, but I'm Ossining Schools and I'm on Hungerford Road but north. So I'm a little confused by the whole thing. And the other point I just wanted to make is I'm struggling with myself is my mom was part of county government in New Jersey, and we would say we are the government, so if you have a problem with it, get involved. So I'm struggling with my own responsibility here, which is how much time do I have to get involved versus being a gadfly saying, hey, this isn't happening properly. So I would love to see a process as we form these committees to allow people to apply, whether they're for something or against something, so that all voices are heard as we try to make a plan for ourselves as a larger community. And that kind of includes everyone. Thank you.
Tom Boland, I live on Mohawk Road in the village. My in-laws are in the town outside. I have a very general question. So is there any advice or recommendations that as we start this process, to help us create a comprehensive plan that can be useful? You know, we talked about there was a plan in 2002, it was updated at some point, now here we are again. So what is, some things for the community to think in mind as we're developing this, so that it's a more useful document that gets implemented?
I was like stumped. Professor right there. What should the community be thinking about right now? Well, first of all, I mean, I think that there's there's definitely two things I want everyone to go home with right now. One is, when you go home, I want you to think truly, because this is the questions that are going to be asked, is what do you love about living here? Like, why did you choose to live here? Because it's those things that have to stay protected within our comprehensive plan. From naming of restaurants and parks, but what brought you here? Why here, of all places? Because, again, that's what's important to you. And then you need to think of some of the challenges. Why is it that you have to leave the town and go food shopping? Let's pretend, I don't know if you really have to do that, but why do you leave the town? And what is it that the other communities have or municipalities have that you don't have, that you would like here? Again, it could be wishful thinking, and I'm not going to say we can promise everything, but that's the challenge, right? Is what do you love and what are you missing here? Because a sustainable community should be able to take care of itself along with the support of your neighboring municipalities. And so what does that vision look like for you? And then finally, I mean, I guess I'd have to go back and look, but this is very nerdy, but you could go and start reading about planning efforts or the history of planning or other communities' comprehensive plans online. If you're really needing to fall asleep at night, go on, check out what others have done, because that language, those goals, those perspectives, you might not have thought about before, and be ready to be pushed, right? Like this comp plan might talk about driverless cars. Maybe not, but like planners are going to push you, and you should push yourself to think about the future of Ossining and what that might look like. Was that?
That was great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, well that worked then. Good. So I don't read that many comprehensive.
Thank you, everybody. What I'd like to do, since we only have 15 minutes left, is ask Tiffany if you would walk out into the hallway so that the public could have another opportunity to engage this evening with the beginning of this process to help us think about who you think or what groups or what organizations you think would be important, and they could be representatives. It could even be you, and you could say why you think it would be important to have you as part of the comprehensive plan process. Yeah, outside with Tiffany. With the bulletin boards. And so there are two questions out there, right?
Two questions out there. I will be out there.
What's the second question? One is about the steering committee.
Like what makes a sustainable Ossining?
What makes a sustainable Ossining? Right. So those are the two questions. And I'm going to now just go through some announcements, which is just about what's going on around town, which you can stay for, and then we're going to go into a quick executive session, which we are going to try to stay here for and be as quick as possible, but if not, we may have to relocate to Town Hall across the street. So with that, I'm going to go into announcements, and then I'll take a motion to go into executive session. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming out this evening, and we look forward to your continued participation. We're so happy to have such a big group of you and of our engaged community, and we know that this is going to be a great process, and thanks again for participating in it by just coming this evening. Okay, so for announcements. First, I learned from the Village of Briarcliff Manor that there had been some changes to the Bacansico River Bridge construction schedule to accommodate the severe nor'easter which is expected in our area tomorrow and Thursday. Pleasantville Road from Todd Lane and Ash Road has been closed starting tonight at 6 p.m. October 15th at 6 p.m., as I mentioned. It is anticipated that Pleasantville Road will reopen by 6 a.m. tomorrow, Wednesday, October 16th. So if you're driving around this evening and you live in Briarcliff, Timony, then be careful not to avoid Pleasantville Road. Police will be on scene to assist, but please avoid the area as best you can. This Friday is the first night of Forest O' Fears Hunting at Cedar Lane. Grab your tickets now at forestofears.org for the 4 nights of Halloween fun waiting for you at Cedar Lane Park this weekend. Friday, October 18th and Saturday, October 19th, and next weekend, Friday, October 25th and Saturday, October 26th. All proceeds this year will benefit the SPCA of Westchester on North State Road. Other events this weekend, and there are so many of them. Saturday, October 19th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., head over to Mike Risco Music on Croton Avenue to help kick off the store's 10th anniversary. Happy anniversary, Mike and Miriam, with an open house. Come for breakfast treats, mini trial lessons, activities, instrument try-me stations, and specials. Saturday, October 19th is also the Big Os Barbecue from 12 noon to 6 p.m. at Henry Gordine Park. It's not your ordinary barbecue. It's an inclusive, community-focused cultural event. The Big Os Barbecue offers an afternoon of live music, entertainment, craft beverages, and food cooked on an open flame. A local showcase, the Big Os Barbecue recognizes and aims to celebrate the diversity within Ossining. Each food vendor is invited to provide a dish of what open flame cooking represents in their culture, whether it's jerk chicken, paella, or barbecue spare ribs. The public is invited to enjoy the afternoon by the waterfront on October 19th, and it is free to attend. Also, I'm not sure, I don't think it's in here, but the Ossining Farmers Market, I think, is going to have some special craft vendors this weekend, and that is from 8:30 to 1 p.m. Also on Saturday, New York State Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff is hosting a community celebration to recognize the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage at 1 p.m. at the Ossining Historical Society with a reading of the Declaration of Sentiments. I encourage you to join me and other women from our community as we acknowledge this important milestone. And on Sunday, October 20th, the Ossining Police PBA is holding its 5K race, a foot pursuit, Escape from Sing Sing. For more information, visit facebook.com/Ossining PBA 5K. Fable Farm is holding its Farm Fest on Sunday, October 20th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. with lots of local artisan vendors, foods, fresh fruits and veggies, and the opportunity to feed the chickens. How could you go wrong? Finally, on Sunday, village historian Dana White and town historian Scott Craven will be leading walking tours of historic Sparta Cemetery at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m., rain or shine. The tour begins and ends at the Jug Tavern with round-trip transportation to the cemetery. Tickets are $30 per person. To reserve your ticket, the 3 p.m. tour is already sold out. Contact ohcc10562@gmail.com or call 914-762-6136. Once again, thank you everybody for participating this evening. We greatly appreciate it, and we look forward to our future engagement on the comprehensive plan for Town of Ossining. And now, if I could have a motion to go into exec. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our next meeting is a legislative session. I believe we have a couple of public hearings that have been continued at the courthouse on Tuesday, October 22nd at 7:30 p.m. Hope to see you all then.